This is going to be a bit of a chatty video, bit of a prelude to the DLC. I'm going to do the DLC as a series just before the Elden Beast, which is the end of the walkthrough effectively. From that point, all you should need to do is head into the Ringed City and defeat the final boss, if that's what you want to do. There's also a little bit of cleanup that I'll save for the end of the video that I forgot to put into the main walkthrough. It didn't affect trophies or anything, but it is important that I go over that and admit that obviously I made a bit of a mistake. Either way, this is going to be preparations and my advice before starting the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. And it's mostly going to revolve around hitting some caps. The first thing, and this is potentially going to upset a few people that have come through as the pure mage. Obviously, we've changed things around a little bit. I am no longer doing light load for evasion because there are a lot of enemies in here that close gaps and distances very quickly. They do lots of rapid attacks. It is simply more valuable to be able to go through a hit and be able to continue hitting ourselves rather than be able to roll a little bit further. I didn't go through poise in the walkthrough. The long and short is basically most attacks in the game will fit within 3 poise breaks. There is 50, 100, and then basically we can't poise through it. Poising means that if we get hit, we can still continue with our attack, won't get interrupted. This includes most of our spells as well. I think some of them don't have any poise, but most of our spells will be fine. And because of that, if your poise is over that number, so in terms of like a lightish attack, if your poise is over 50, therefore 51, you can go through an attack and continue with your own attacks. We're going to call 51 the minimum poise level for going through the DLC. This means that I've had a bit of a respec. You can see right here. If you've run out of larval tiers, don't worry. Once we get into part 1, I'll show you guys how to get an early larval tier. And we also have a little bit more strength, as you can see, because the DLC wants lots of high damage. So you can see I've switched from the Regal Staff to Lusat's Staff. And we also have a talisman early on in the DLC that is going to help us with the mana burn a hell of a lot. I had my stats up here for a while. You can see that I'm level 175. At this point in the series, you should be 173, which is what I looked at as a minimum. And I didn't even use any runes. So you guys will probably be higher level than me anyway. And before this video, we also have the best rune farming zone in here. I actually tested farming from 173 to 175. It took me less than 15 minutes. So we are happy with that. Next up then, you can see, as I said, we no longer go pure mage because we're going to need to be able to participate in combat, which means we have a little bit more strength and dex. That is because I am personally going to be using the Uchigatana. This is easier to wield than the Moonveil, which I think this is better than anyway, because it gives us more raw damage. It takes less stats away from our intelligence, and I feel like we still want to be as magey as we can be. In terms of the Ash of War on here, for now, I decided we're going to go with Glintblade Phalanx, but I'm also very tempted eventually to change to the Chilling Mist as well, which is very, very strong. We were testing with this. This is really, really good. And the best thing about Chilling Mist is, as you can see, if we put this on cold, it'll gain scaling from both intelligence and dexterity. This is important because we're going to get loads of runes thrown at us in the DLC. It's actually kind of crazy just how fast you can level. Our dump stat is going to be dexterity. That's where I'm going to place all of the points that we get from now on, because 2 reasons. This is going to improve our cast speed. I think the cap is like 70, and we're only on 45 right now, including Radagon's icon, which gives us 30 ghost dexterity to count as cast speed. Going through everything else then, just in case you guys want to see what else we have on. We've got the Carrion Knight Shield, because this fits with our intelligence and has good guard boost. I've upgraded it pretty far. We've got the Lusat's plus 10 and the Uchigatana. If you don't have anything at max, don't worry, just get it to plus 24. There are a lot of stones in here that allow you to get to plus 25. Plenty of things in here that we're going to want to play around with anyway. You can see armor is mostly Hoslow's, but you can use anything that you like the look of. I quite like the reddish, almost royal tone that we've got. So we're going to call ourselves something like the Royal Battle Mage. You're going to see why this is called a Battle Mage as we go through, because this has been performing pretty well as I've been doing streams. I've got the Gold Scarab, but that's going to get replaced pretty early on once we get into the DLC. You guys can keep that on for as long as you wish to. And then, of course, we have things like the Scorpion Charm, Radagon Icon, and the Graven Mass Talisman, because we are still a mage. Form of Summon, for now, I'm still on Tish. May switch this to the Mimic tier, because now that we are more combat oriented with good armor and a good shield, the Mimic tier will be pretty sick. In fact, if you do this with the Cold Mist, having 2 cold attackers will make a lot of things very, very easy. Proccing that cold early, doing percentage damage, and then make so they take more damage is just going to be really, really good all around. So we may switch to that later on. And that pretty much rounds out where we are. Anything else that I can think of that you might need, such as Arteria Leaves and all that kind of thing, have already been covered in the walkthrough. And so after this is going to be part 1 of the walkthrough for the Shadow of the Erdtree. If you feel like you don't need it, obviously you can click onto the walkthrough playlist, skip over to the end, or you can go ahead, follow along with something that is ultimately probably the best content From Software have ever created. It's been finish the video then, just want to go over where we activate some great runes. We should have most of them activated already. So we've got the Divine Tower of Limgrave, that was for Godrix. Then we had Renalis, the Divine Tower of Liurnia. Rykard's is at the Divine Tower of West Altus. Moog's will be at the Divine Tower of Altus Gate. All of these should be easy to get to. And then there was also Millennia's. That is at the Isolated Tower, which is over this way. And I'm going to show you guys the long way to get there, just in case you've gone so far that you can no longer reach the manor and are unable to get to the usual way of reaching the Isolated Tower. So what you want to do is you actually want to go to where we got the Blessed Dew from. This was very early in the walkthrough. We probably already have a Grace Court for it, but we're going to go the long way. So you want to come to the Isolated Merchant's Shack and then head on over to the Tower of Return. Once here, you want to head to the top of the tower. Shouldn't be too difficult, especially this late in the playthrough. Activate the chest. It's going to bring us to the Ashen Capital. Activate the Grace if you haven't already, and then head on through the archway. We're pretty much going to ignore the golem. We really don't care about this at all. We're going to take a left as soon as we go through, and then we want to activate the portal and say yes pretty much immediately. This brings us to the Isolated Tower. This is just like any of the other towers. We just need to head on to the top. Got another Grace here on the way up. And then finally, at the top, we can receive Millennia's Great Rune.